was talking about the liberal agenda in education, and they were specifically talking about how Scholastic uses the liberal agenda when teaching arithmetic and algebra.
What's Scholastic?
Scholastic is basically, you know, a publishing house for educational materials.
Oh, yeah, those people. All right, okay.
Okay, so Eric Bolling goes off on distributive property. Let's take a look.
Anyways.
Check out the wording of this algebra lesson. Can you get this? Which camera? You want number 6? Distribute the wealth for distributive property of addition and multiplication. This is for grades 3 through 6. Distribute the wealth with the lovely rich girl with a big old bag of money handing some money out. So as you folks, I do it every year at a parent-teacher night. You have to read your kids' textbooks, find out what's being taught. If you see a bias, make sure you explain it to your kids, and by all means, tell your teachers you're on it.
Really? Distributive property is a real part of arithmetic and algebra. So they use that it's not part of a liberal agenda. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't think he even knows that distributive property is part of algebra and arithmetic.
Well, you remember when they did the Republican war on math, and they were saying Nate Silver is wrong about the polls because they couldn't figure out math? And so I guess this continues. Look, in math they do all those analogies. So when they do, remember, like a train is going at 85 miles an hour and from Washington
another train
to...
leaves here, when will they cross paths?
Right, exactly, right? These guys would be like, oh, I guess it's a subsidy for Amtrak. That's how these liberals are. The public transportation because of their green energy agenda. No, dude, it's money. Like, how many times have you seen...
How about this? One giant Hummer leaves Washington, D.C. with one person in it. It goes 100 miles an hour and uses up as much gas as possible.
And every single math analogy, at some point, there's a question about, okay, you had somebody paid $17, another person gave back $3. How much money do you have left? Oh, I guess you want to redistribute the $17. No. That's what you want to do.
I love the quotes. Okay, and then Greg Gutfeld said the following. Everybody has anecdotal evidence of this, referring to the liberal agenda. I think the only way leftism can survive is through indoctrination because its #1 adversary is reality. So you got to get them young, and it's perfect for kids. Paul Krugman's logic is child's play. Share your stuff. A lot of this comes from the teachers. They get their news from Huffington Post and the antiperspirant from the health food store, which I don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
this is the way they
He
live.
thinks he's a comedian.
Greg Gutfeld is the most unfunny person I've ever come across in my entire life.
Well, I really don't like that. There's really I don't know that anyone would have that now, but for a long time he had the reputation of sort of being the comedian and maybe the moderate on that group, but he's a... Yeah. The thing of it is that, like, again, it's perfect for them because the lesson was literally called distribute the wealth. I mean, there was obviously a different ways to do it, but obviously if they're talking about the distributive property, and they want to make it appealing for kids, but they used I would have said distribute the money, honestly, if I'd been designing it. But the great
they would
thing
have attacked that anyway.
I personally felt bad for that female cartoon, like that poor rich cartoon having to distribute the wealth. How dare they?
But also that was like, I mean, dude, Eric Bolling, like you took page 78 out of that book. Like, what's on 77? What's on 79? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I mean, he took that one little page and he was like, aha! And I love the idea that he really thinks that there is that we've got to the point that there is an agenda there among teachers to become socialists.
And then he makes fun of Paul Krugman, it's child's play. Paul Krugman has a Nobel, right? Now, that's not like something that, literature, and we thought we gave it to because it was our interpretation of that literature.
I think he got the Nobel because he designed a Lego game. I think that's what it was.
It is a complicated economic theory that it is well accepted by all other economists in the world. That's why he won the Nobel Prize for it. Mm-hmm. And Greg Gutfeld thinks, well, I'm a genius, but Paul Krugman's a child.
Yeah.
And so this is the kind of stuff they do.
I gotta read one more quote and then JR, please jump in. Greg Gutfeld said this, and then they were very, very liberally biased, saying George Bush went in there to Iraq because he heard there were weapons of mass destruction and they were never found. It was a very liberal bias to the history books. No, it's not a liberal bias. That's the truth.
No, I mean, what is he saying?
He can't even come up with an example. He just did the example that's exactly right.
He said, but Greg, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, so would it be fair and balanced to say maybe there were? But that's Fox News. That's what they said.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Ironically, Oh, number one, this is the textbook for projection. Exactly, like word for word. If they're complaining about math textbooks, they're writing a textbook for projection because it's obviously we already know that's exactly what they do. And number two, like, okay, you come up with the idea for this segment and you come with the distributive properties that you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. And you have probably 10 producers, cameraman, somebody lighting, somebody step up and go, hey, you guys know there's this distributive properties in math? Just say it. Somebody just clue them in. It's amazing that the entire studio, no one, no hosts, no producers, no lighting men knew and said, hey, you guys, you're about to make yourselves look like fucking idiots.
I think I know an editor at Fox, not well, who's a Democrat, and she's like, look, it's a job. It's hard to keep a job. You just sort of, every day you're just like, poof, you just roll your eyes and do your job. And I suspect that's what's happened.
No, they're not going to tell. I mean, look.
She also this woman, she's like, you just sort of, you crave the news stuff. Like, when they do a news package, like, okay, it's just today it's just news.
Yeah, look, that's the problem, though. I mean, so many people depend on this for a living. So then the news media had to construct this lie that they're doing news at Fox News. It's because you don't want to say, like my friend is working for a propaganda organization, and she knows it, but she doesn't want to say it. I don't want to say it. Look, I've said this before, having worked in cable news, a third of cable news has already worked at Fox News. A third plan to work at Fox News at some point, or think they might work at Fox News. Another third absolutely knows someone that has worked at Fox News. So they're all totally invested in making sure that we think that Fox News is actual news. Otherwise, either themselves or their friends are going to be embarrassed that they work for a propaganda outlet that's just does nothing but lie.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, look, I work for the you can use the same argument. Hey, look, it's a job, I need money, and I work for a propaganda outfit. One day I hope to leave.
And also, this industry is so tiny, so people don't want to burn the bridges by revealing what's
it's getting bigger and bigger. The internet has at least got, but yes, you're right. Yeah. It is.
Oh, absolutely. Look, like when we did a story on Roger Ailes, everybody in the building would panic, because they either work for him or they want to work. Okay, look, one last thing. On JR's projection point, he said, they're projecting because what they actually distribute the wealth. They do, right? So, for example, oil subsidies. Can you imagine it? Like, and what is it that they want in the textbook? Like, what would be the Republican version of that? Okay, now the rich have, pay 35% in taxes, but they should pay 25% in taxes. So, what's the tax cut that the rich should receive?
Right. I mean,
the Republicans wouldn't. They just want to erase distributive property from math. Like, let's just pretend like it doesn't exist.
But to Cenk's point, we distribute the wealth. That's what we do. The question is, how much wealth are we distributing? And the issue really has come down to 39% above 400,000 or 35% over 400,000. Like, so somehow 35% is not redistribution, 39% redistribution.
35% capitalist, 39% communist.